Welcome back. This is Brighter Morning with Bo on MCTV, Multicultural TV, beaming in Trinidad and Tobago and the entire Caribbean. And our guest in this second hour is Mr. Farley, Augustine, and we welcome him now to our conversation on Brighter Morning. Mr. Augustine, how are you?
I'm good, Bo. Thank you for having me. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, no, we're very happy to have you um, and to have a conversation with you. I want to start because I was quite struck by the newspapers this morning. You know, we have a Newsday front page. I wonder if we can show it on screen, in which it talks about a cash giveaway, millions in grants, 3 weeks before the THA election. And Diane Haddad has already come out. We have a news report. We had a news report at 7 in which she said it looks like a bribe, that she is happy for the people, but it doesn't look good as part of an election campaign. So that's the first thing. And the second issue I want to share with you is that when I took up the Business Guardian, I saw Tobago's economic headache on the front page. Moody's gives negative outlook rating. Island's economy declines 14% in 2020. Depends on Trinidad for 99% of its revenue. And then it says PDP to inherit Tobago's economic headache. So I wonder if I could start the conversation by asking you to comment first on the Newsday front page of the giveaway by the current Chief Secretary and the announcement of this giveaway on the eve of an election. And then when we talk about the economic issues, I want you to address this issue of the headache. So you can deal with the Chief Secretary's campaign promises now.
Oh, no, I'm not going to say it looks like bribery. It is bribery. It is evident to all Togolese that the attempt is to
Can you raise the
see if
volume?
we can use government resources to actually skew the election in their favor. But I can assure you, Bo, that Togolese are wide awake and cannot be bought or sold. And so I am not worried one bit by this last minute giveaway. You know, several Togolese did not get access to the grant funding. I assisted hundreds in filling out the applications, emailing them in, and folks are waiting more than a year to get the assistance they applied for. And all of a sudden, voila, 3 weeks before the election, this money is finally available. Clearly, it is bribery. And clearly, it's a response to what their polls are telling them. And it is a response to what is happening on the ground in Tobago. But Togonians are now very resolute in their minds that we are not going to go back with the PNM. We are going to switch gears, and they're switching in large numbers to the PDP. But let's talk about the broader issue of the Tobago economy. Before the budget that went, I was on record in the papers as saying that Tobago needed at least $1 billion extra just to be used as stimulus because the economy of Tobago basically had collapsed, dead, more or less. And that happens because the THA has not operated in a sustainable manner over the years. The business guidance is correct. 99% of the revenue for the THA comes through subsidies from the central government as required from the Dispute Resolution Commission. You are parliamentarian and you were part of a cabinet, so you will understand how that works, between 4.03% and 6.9% of the national budget we get. But that is insufficient for Tobago's development needs. This fiscal year, we were given $264 million for capital development expenditure, while a little over $1 billion for current expenditure. And I always make the comparison. You give us 264 million for capital development, but we spent in excess of 400 million to fix up one single building, Red House. So the value of the Red House is greater than the capital development value for an entire island of 160 square miles and 60,000 people in the fiscal year. And so the comparison shows how underfunded we are. But a larger part of the problem is that the teacher over the last 21 years has been able to generate income, has decimated, has killed off, mash up the private sector in Tobago. Tourism prior to the coming of COVID had declined by some 11%. We had one peak year of 80,000 thereabout, and that was about 15 years ago. And since then, the numbers for international arrivals kept dipping until we are at around an average of about 12 to 15,000 international arrivals per year. And of course, with COVID, that went to nearly zero. The Hotel and Tourism Association actually did a report, and in their report, in their study, they found among their members that only 28% was able to access moratorium on their loans in the banks. So the banks have not been treating them well. Over 70% of our tourism plans in the accommodation sector are saying now that they don't think it's likely that they will reopen post COVID. We literally almost left to die in the waters. And the truth is that the way the economy of Tobago was managed over the last 21 years has resulted in what we have. And when I say to Tobagonians, look, we have some work to do. No, I don't plan to come in there and fire everybody because our staffing is too large. But we have to build out the private sector. We have to build out a culture of entrepreneurship. We have to fix tourism and provide for the islanders, the people of Tobago, alternatives to the THA for their everyday needs. The PNM is here in Tobago telling people, Farley go fire all you. Don't vote for them. Don't go down that road. We go try to employ all of y'all. But it is evident from Moody's that that's not possible. And it's another case where PNM will say, we ain't gonna fire you and show up and do like what they do to Petro Train, fire everybody. And I'm saying this election is so critical because from here we either go to chaos or community. And if we go with PNM, we are going with chaos. If you go with PDP, you're going with community and a community-oriented approach, an approach that will look at how we can scale back some of our vanity projects, how we can reprioritize our spending and our management, and how we could try to fix things in Tobago. And that's all we have been telling Tobagonians. Let me fix this.
All right. Okay, I'm going to probe that a little bit. But before I go, just a quick question. The government allocated through the Ministry of Finance $50 million for rehabilitation works on small business in the tourism sector. And they have now allocated another $50 million. Do you think that the $50 million shows in the tourism, the small tourism plants in Tobago, and are they prepared for an opening up of Tobago because they got this money and were able to fix themselves? Did that happen, or was it just talk and they did not get any money?
Listen, the $50 million scheme, some folks got a first payout, and we don't know what they did with the majority of that $50 million. We need an audit into the first $50 million that was allocated to treat with the tourism sector, because we have no clue how that was used. In fact, when I speak to people in this sector, they are saying, look, when we count up how much money we received, it doesn't all add up in the collective to $50 million. And so we want to know where the rest of that money went, those monies went. But I'm telling you what they have done over the last 10 months, in, or in fact, over the last year, was to just direct THA spending towards electioneering. And that is not a profitable economic model. And so we will always find ourselves in this kind of predicament when governments act irresponsibly with the people's money.
All right. I want to get to something that you yourself raised, but I think is important. What will you do for Tobago via the THA if you become the next Chief Secretary of the House of Assembly in Tobago? What will you do that will make a decisive difference to the lives of the people of Tobago?
The first thing that I am offering to Tobagonians is a lot more transparency. I know we hear this all the time all across the country, but I want to elevate governance in Tobago to the place whereby people can have access to the government in a very transparent way. We have proposed getting on e-government platforms, e-governance platforms, allowing people to see simple things from the list of contractors selected, bidding processes. All of these things don't exist in the Tobago space properly at this point. And if you look at UN statistics, you will see where corruption is a major factor in reducing the income or the monies countries have, especially small island developing states, for actual development programs. Next, we need to restructure our tourism product, because that is our biggest asset outside of the government sector in Tobago. And it is where we have some competitive advantage, but we have not managed that very well. And so we need to restructure our tourism sector in such a manner that it will facilitate growth, that we will facilitate domestic tourism, that we can encourage as many as possible from Trinidad to come across. We have also proposed branching out into regional tourism and trying to get those from across the region, especially those neighboring to us, to join us in Tobago. We have spoken about having the inter-island ferry going all the way to the neighboring Caribbean islands and creating in Tobago a hub for our Caribbean brothers and sisters to come through the Tobago port as a way of regenerating what happens in Tobago in terms of travel tourism. We also have to look at, sorry?
No. Go ahead. You go ahead. You say what you're saying. Yeah.
No, no, we also have to look quite intensely at at our manufacturing sector and light manufacturing. We have the Cove Industrial Plant, and many of those who have tried to engage THA at that industrial plant have been struggling, and the industrial plant in and of itself has not maximized its potential, has not done as well as it should do. We are also looking at agro processing and how we can support those in that area. We need laboratory services so agro processors can have their goods properly certified to meet health and safety standards, get ISO certified, and so on. We need proper veterinary services, uh, public abattoirs, because we don't have a single one that is functional at the moment, to treat with our farmers, especially our those in small ruminant farming and our pig farmers. where there is some competitive advantage there as well. So basically what I'm talking about is the transformation of Tobago. How do we transform Tobago from what we have had, where the government sector has stifled and killed off most industries, and where the government sector in and of itself cannot stand up in post-COVID times? We have to go back to the basics and go back to building out the society and building out sectors outside of the government sector.
I get the impression that you really want to move away from what you might call government dominance by the House of Assembly in the lives of people, and create the conditions for entrepreneurial activity, small business activity, diversification of the economy, getting businesses, private sector involved in the economy in a much more meaningful way. Is that what you have in mind? And what would be some of your key socio-economic priorities for Tobago? You mentioned tourism, you mentioned small ruminant farming, you mentioned agriculture, you mentioned light industrial. You want to talk a little bit about that again and maybe advance what you are saying?
Sure. And you're right. I am desirous of trying to move Tobago to a place where we have a much more dominant non-governmental sector, meaning the private sector in several industries. Now, one of Tobago's largest problems is that the majority of Tobagonians do not live on the island of Tobago. Let that sink in for a moment. We have a significantly larger diaspora than we have of Tobagonians resident on the island of Tobago. There are more Tobagonians living in Trinidad than living on the island of Tobago. The reason for that is because over the years, THA has created an environment where there is a scarcity of opportunities. And the Tobagonians have over the years contended with just leaving to find greener pastures as opposed to being able to find those pastures locally. And so, if I can create strong and robust sectors outside of the THA, that will more likely attract our experts, our brightest minds, Tobagonians who are wealthy and living abroad back home. And we plan to be purposeful in encouraging them to return home. In terms of our socio-economic development plans, we are looking at ways we can beef up small women, and as I said, because we actually have a competitive advantage there. And let me give you an example. We have these sheep and goat vans that drive around Tobago, and these vans originate from Trinidad. They will come and buy your goat at approximately $16 a pound live weight. But they will go to Trinidad, slaughter the goat, bust the neck of the goat, call it halal, and then charge $52 per pound for the same goat. And my understanding is that Tobago goat meat fetches a higher price than the imported goat meat, but the Tobago goat meat is sold faster than the imported goat meat by the butchers and so on down south and central. In fact, our former minister Israel Khan actually spoke about that in Tobago at a joint select committee meeting on the island. But it shows that Tobago has not concentrated on the value added to the product. We're still selling products down to Trinidad in its raw form, in its basic form, its base form. And so there is a need for us to support industries like our small ruminant farmers. Because if we can support those industries, we can add the value to it. We can add input things like proper packaging and marketing and so on. And we can get the product from the farmer to the end user, which includes Trinidad. I'm also saying to Tobagonians this morning that we have a market next door to us, right in Trinidad, with over 1 million people. Yes, the Tobago market is small and the economies of scale on the island is small. But if we just tap into the Trinidad market and have Tobago shelves at Price Mart and at our major supermarkets in Trinidad, so that you go when you're shopping can walk through Price Mart and pick up a nice package with what we call dry fish or Tobago smoked fish, which is another indigenous product in Tobago that I'm told Trinidadians love. Or you can go to your regular supermarket shelves and find the same Benebol and Tambambol that we all have to load up our bags with every time we fly into Trinidad or sail into Trinidad just for family and friends. Then there is some value to be added to that, some monies we can make to that. The boats that are coming up to Tobago are with just passengers and loaded with stuff that Tobagonians purchase in Port of Spain and elsewhere in Trinidad must return to Trinidad full when it's going down. And that is the goal. That's the direction I wish to push Tobago. Because the business guideline is clear. We have to push and push Tobagonians to that place.
All right, Farley, I want to ask you a question, but I don't want you to answer yet. When we come back, you'll answer it. I want to ask you the question does Tobago have enough democracy as an island of 60,000 people, 15 electoral districts, and about 50 communities? And how would you deepen democracy if you became chief secretary? I want to take a break now for commercials, and when we come back, we'll start with the answer to that question, okay? All right. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I'm Bo Tiwari, your host this morning. Thank you very much for watching. We are talking to Farley Augustine, Chief Secretary Designate of the People's Democratic Party in Tobago. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutions.tt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
As businesses adapt to the new normal, let Magic Mist take care of your cleaning and sanitization needs with our COVID-19 BSCAI internationally certified technicians. With over 43 years of protecting the health of our nation, you can trust us to ensure your building remains safe, healthy, and functional. Give us a call today at 638-6675 or 332-5522. Magic Mist Services Limited, your total facilities management solutions provider.
Brighter Morning with Bo. You are in the right place on MCTV, Multicultural TV, and we are talking to Mr. Farley Augustine. Farley, I was asking you a question about democracy in Tobago and how it can be deepened and whether that is one of your trusts. But I want to tell you, I have plenty questions to ask you, so if you are sharp and pointed with the question, we'll get more ground covered. Okay.
Sure. Now, many will argue that 50,000 significantly smaller constituencies, or what we call electoral districts, means that we are deep in democracy, because it means that you now, the public electorate, now have easier access to your area representative in a much more intimate manner. And that might be so in one regard. But however, we have learned in Trinidad and Tobago that just having smaller seats or more seats does not in it of itself always lead to deepening democracy. And that's why I have been big on pushing e-governance platforms, because I want to set up a situation where Ogonians using our e-governance platform can actually determine some of the motions we debate in the House of Assembly, some of the questions that members of the Assembly will answer, that members will get to see in real time projects from stage to stage and get to comment and indicate what they like, what they do not like. They must get to participate. The committees, the special committees of the House, we are going to open up those to public consumption, because at the moment our special committees, when they meet, and they scarcely meet, when they meet, they do not meet in full view of the cameras as they do in Trinidad at the National Parliament. So I plan to change that and have those committees meet in full glare of the public, so that we can begin to scrutinize what THA executive members do and what divisions are doing, and people can participate in their governance model. I am big on that, because with democracy and especially participatory democracy, you actually get to strengthen your economic success.
All right. Now, Tobagonians voted against the PNM in January because they lost some of the seats that they held before. But they did not give the PDP a majority. What will convince Tobagonians, you think, in this election to give you a majority this time?
Now, I think Tobagonians are already convinced. And Tobagonians get to see during the tie how both parties operated. They saw one party trying its best to find solutions and even reach across the aisle. I even proposed, my party proposed, Mr. Duke proposed that we should come together, form an amalgamation of sorts, and temporarily govern until we can make our way back to an election. That was strongly rejected by them. They did not want it at all. They didn't want to have any sort of accommodation. They didn't want any sit down, any real conversations about governance. And while we had this undemocratic holdover THA executive, because remember, the old executive remained in place, including someone who was not a member of the THA. And so for the first time in history of the House of Assembly, a non-member of the THA was a secretary in the House of Assembly. And in that undemocratic holdover state, they proceeded to govern with very little restraint, spending big monies, big contracts, electioneering with state resources, and Tobagonians have now seen them for their truest color and are fed up and ready to make a change.
What will they get under you as chief secretary that they have not gotten from the PNM and perhaps will never get from the PNM? What do you have to say to the people of Tobago that they can be guaranteed that they will get that from you?
They can be guaranteed they will get honesty and integrity. And Bo, I have gone a step further into having lawyers draft up social contracts, and I demanded from every single one of my candidates that they sign this social contract before they were nominated on Monday. And I am going to hold them by that social contract, and anyone that falls out of line with that social contract, I will deal with as the case may be. And this is not the kind of social contract that Dr. Williams is famous for, which is an undated letter of resignation. That can be abused, but this is a social contract where I hope to hold all executive members to a higher standard than we have seen before. So the days when we get these Auditor General reports with adverse opinions, where Auditor General can't find billions of dollars in receipts, in vouchers to verify expenditures, where Auditor General cannot find bank accounts, where after years the Auditor General is actually now discovering bank accounts that were hidden from the Auditor General's office and so on. Those days will come to an end under Farley Chavez Augustine.
All right. What would you say if you had to shape the fundamental issue before Tobagonians in this election to help them to make a decision about how to vote? How would you frame the fundamental challenge for voters and for Tobago?
The fundamental challenge for Tobago at the moment, and Tobagonians at the moment, are really those bread and butter issues. And if you notice the direction they are going with the $50 million bribery, it's because they have recognized, like we have, that there are many Tobagonians who are significantly down on their luck, who are without, who are losing a whole heap, have lost a whole lot. And, and that might be the same for parts of Trinidad. But remember, Trinidad always had a far more robust private sector than Tobago. And with the limited private sector opportunities we had that are now lost, it is incredibly difficult for Tobagonians to get back on their feet. They can't just easily get up and walk into some business or go into town and get a job or to find some opportunities somewhere else. It is not that easy. And so the fundamental issue is, how are we going to, from day one, immediately begin some relief to the people of Tobago?
All right. Listen, you know, your leader is a controversial figure, as most leaders are, because you have people for and against. Is Mr. Watson Duke an asset or a liability to the PDP in this particular THA election?
Mr. Duke is like all the other candidates I have, a significant asset in this election. Notice that Mr. Duke has almost always won the seat by the largest majority in an election. And for most elections, his seat turns out the highest turnout, except for the one in January, where my seat had the highest voter turnout. Mr. Duke, like every other candidate I have, can always be a liability, like every other candidate. So he's no different from any candidate in the election. He's no different from any candidate that PNM has as well. And we are seeing that some of their own candidates are liabilities and some are assets, and some are more liabilities than assets. But Mr. Duke is as much an asset as any other candidate I have in this election.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the closing question now. This campaign, you know, is going to be kind of fierce. You're going to have Tobagonians involved in it. You're going to have Trinidadians involved in it. You have a rise in COVID across the country. People in Tobago, less than 50% are vaccinated. Are we going to see a spike after this campaign in terms of COVID infections and illnesses?
It's a likelihood. The truth is, elections in any society requires the movement of people. It requires some intimacy. It requires canvassing. It requires us knocking on doors. It requires us putting in the hard work. It requires people moving to and from the polls to actually vote. And it requires people to move them. So no election can happen without those intimate interactions. So there is a likelihood that there can be a spike post the election. But it's something that we just have to have. And from where I sit, COVID we will have with us always. And at some point, we will need to reopen the economy. At some point, we will need to get going, and we will just have to manage the COVID. The vaccinations are there. People have the choice to take them or not take them. Those who wanted them took them. Those who did not want them did not take them. People just need to remain safe and keep pressing on with their lives. We just absolutely have to. We have to. We have no choice.
All right. You realize that it's going to be a hard challenge when you get into office, given what we know, the Moody's negative outlook, the decline of the economy in Tobago by 14%, the fact that you are so dependent on finance from Trinidad. Why do you want this job?
Because if I don't take this job now, Tobago will be lost forever. But I was an educator for 7 years. I taught in the classroom. And some will argue that's because we don't have a robust private sector, there's nothing else for me to do. But I need to do something for all of those people that I taught.
All right. Okay. I want to thank you very much, Farley Augustine, for being so straightforward and candid in this interview. I want to thank you for being my guest. And I hope maybe in the last week of the election, I can get you and your counterpart side by side on this show, maybe for the full 2 hours, and have a debate or a question and answer period in which I can raise some of the issues in Tobago. Would you welcome something like that?
Easily welcome it. In fact, I am on public record as saying we should have a debate.
All right. Well, we will try to see if that is possible. Thank you very much. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. Thank you for watching. We're very glad that you watched us today for 2 hours. We'll see you tomorrow when our guest will be Mr. Henry Awang, Chairman of the Couva Tabaki Talparo Corporation, and Mr. Jack Siglala, Chairman of the Digo Martin Corporation, and we will be talking local government. See you tomorrow. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari. This is MCTV, Multicultural TV, and we hand over to Andrew Chan and the news.